Ledges and outcroppings of rock afforded fairly easy footholds for a descent.
要爬落去啊
Whilst after a drop of only a few hundred feet, the declivity became very gradual.
爬過幾十米，你認真？
Urged on by an impulse which I cannot definitely analyze, I scrambled with difficulty down the rocks and stood on the gentler slope beneath,
好，爬緊。
gazing into the Stygian deeps, where no light had yet penetrated.
好。
All at once, my attention was captured by a vast and singular object on the opposite slope, which rose steeply about 100 yards ahead of me.
哇，有啲嘢
An
吸引
object
咗。
that gleamed whitely in the newly bestowed rays of the ascending moon.
OK， 就係要睇佢係咪？等陣。
That it was merely a gigantic piece of stone, I soon assured
冇
myself.
錯，呢個就係一個普通嘅石頭嚟㗎咋。
But I was conscious of a distinct impression that its contour and position were not altogether the work of nature.
冇錯，唔係自然產生嘅。
A closer scrutiny filled me with sensations I cannot express. For despite its enormous magnitude, and its position in an abyss which had yawned at the bottom of the sea since the world was young, I perceived beyond a doubt that the strange object was a well-shaped monolith,
巨石碑
whose massive bulk had known the workmanship and perhaps the worship of living and thinking creatures.
OK， 受過有思想嘅智慧生物膜拜。
Dazed and frightened, yet not without a certain thrill of the scientist's or archaeologist's delight, I examined my surroundings more closely.
好，開始睇周圍啦。周圍有啲咩特別啊？好似冇乜特別。好。
The moon, now near the zenith, shone weirdly and vividly above the towering steeps that hemmed in the chasm, and revealed the fact that a far-flung body of water flowed at the bottom, winding out of sight in both directions and almost lapping my feet as I stood on the slope. Across the chasm, the wavelets washed the base of the Cyclopean monolith, on whose surface I could now trace both inscriptions and crude sculptures.
終於都可以睇清楚上邊刻畫嘅紋同埋雕塑。好，我睇清楚佢。
The writing was in a system of hieroglyphics unknown to me and unlike anything I'd ever seen in books.
OK， 係我未見過嘅象形文字。
Consisting for the most part of conventionalized aquatic symbols such as fishes, eels, octopi, crustaceans, mollusks, whales, and the like.
好多海洋符號。
Several characters obviously represented marine things which are unknown to the modern world.
有好多字符係我哋都仲未知嘅海洋生物。
But whose decomposing forms I had observed on the ocean-risen plain.
我曾經見過擁有類似形狀嘅屍骸。
It was the pictorial carving, however, that did most to hold me spellbound.
栩栩如生嘅雕塑。 呢個遊戲呢，出喺洛夫克拉夫特之後嘅作品裏邊，
完善嘅諸多主題同敘事手法，其中包括呢，通過雕塑同壁畫講述故事，以日記同角色留低嘅筆記嚟講述故事，汪洋大海之中嘅孤島。根據真實事件以及神話故事創作嘅虛構生物同神子。除此之外呢，呢個嘢呢，亦都被認為係受到後世追捧嘅克蘇魯神話體系嘅第一個作品。OK。 無獨有偶，呢個作家嘅作品裏邊嘅主人翁呢，亦都經歷咗同呢一個遊戲相似嘅結局。不過為咗避免劇透，我哋就唔講細節啦。
好。
Plainly visible across the intervening water, on account of their enormous size, were an array of bas-reliefs whose subjects would have excited the envy of a doré.
儘管周圍嘅水流十分洶湧，但係我依然可以好清楚咁睇到石碑上嘅細節。石碑表面係充滿住好多好靚嘅 淺浮雕。
I think that these things were supposed to depict men, at least a certain sort of men.
呢啲浮雕應該喺度描繪緊人，或者係講一啲好特別嘅人。
Though the creatures were shown disporting like fishes in the waters of some marine grotto.
哇！我之所以咁講係因為咧，浮雕裏邊嗰啲生物啊，係住喺某啲海底洞穴裏邊，好似魚咁樣游動。
Or paying homage at some monolithic shrine, which appeared to be under the waves as well.
OK。
Of their faces and forms I dare not speak in detail.
OK， 佢嘅面貌同埋身形我唔夠膽喺呢度講啦。
For the mere remembrance makes me grow faint.
拜喘唔過氣嚟嘅壓抑。
Grotesque beyond the imagination of a Poe or a Bulwer.
可以毫不誇張咁樣講呢，就算係愛倫坡或者係布威啊，都冇辦法想像到呢種畸形嘅存在。
They were damnably human in general outline, despite webbed hands and feet, shockingly wide and flabby lips.
呢啲浮雕係披住人形嘅外衣。
Glassy, bulging eyes, and other features less pleasant to recall.
仲有好多令人厭惡嘅特徵。
Curiously enough, they seem to have been chiseled badly out of proportion with their scenic background. For one of the creatures was shown in the act of killing a whale, represented as but little larger than himself.
哦，呢個嘢同自己差唔多大嘅鯨魚屍殺。
I remarked, as I say, their grotesqueness and strange size.
有不可思議嘅體
But
型。
in a moment decided that they were merely the imaginary gods of some primitive fishing or seafaring tribe.
OK， 係一啲原始嘅捕魚部落想像出嚟嘅神。
Some tribe whose last descendant had perished eras before the first ancestor of the Piltdown or Neanderthal man was born. Awestruck at this unexpected glimpse into a past beyond the conception of the most daring anthropologist,
冇錯。
I stood musing whilst the moon cast queer reflections on the silent channel before me. Then, suddenly,
Wow.
I saw it.
我見到佢。
With only a slight churning to mark its rise to the surface, the thing slid into view above the dark waters.
哇！突然之間浮出咗去水面。
Vast, Polyphemus-like and loathsome, it darted like a stupendous monster of nightmares to the monolith, about which it flung its gigantic scaly arms, the while it bowed its hideous head and gave vent to certain measured sounds.
帶有含義嘅聲。
I think I went mad then.
我覺得我嗰陣時已經發咗癲。
Of my frantic ascent of the slope and cliff, and of my delirious journey back to the stranded boat,
我
I
已經唔
remember
記得咗
little.
我係點樣返返去小船度。 哇！
I believe I sang a great deal and laughed oddly when I was unable to sing.
我好似喺度不斷咁唱歌，唱唔到嗰陣時就不斷咁笑。反正
I have indistinct recollections of a great storm sometime after I reached the boat.
有個巨大嘅風暴。
At any rate, I know that I heard pearls of thunder and other tones which nature utters only in her wildest moods.
哇！
When I came out of the shadows, I was in a San Francisco hospital,
當我清醒嗰陣時，已經去到舊金山嘅醫院病床。
brought thither by the captain of the American ship which had picked up my boat in mid-ocean.
嗰個係一個美國船嘅船長喺海上面發現咗我，然之後將我嘅船拉咗上。
In my delirium, I had said much, but found that my words had been given scant attention.
神經錯亂嘅我講咗好多嘢，但佢哋冇理到。
Of any land upheaval in the Pacific, my rescuers knew nothing.
拯救我嘅船根本就唔知道大海太平洋嗰度仲有任何陸地。
Nor did I deem it necessary to insist upon a thing which I knew they could not believe.
佢哋唔相信我嘅遭遇。
喺業餘新聞工作者嘅圈裏邊呢，呢個作者可以稱之為係有頭有面嘅人物。1915年，洛夫克拉夫特發行咗一個叫保守黨嘅刊物，其中刊登咗佢本人同埋其他作者寫嘅政治同埋社會時評、詩歌、短篇故事集以及文學批評嘅文章。呢個人固然係一個才華橫溢嘅作者，但係面對住批評嗰陣時心靈好脆弱，咁樣導致佢最終決定放棄咗自青年時代就開始嘅詩歌事業，轉而再次投入到去怪奇小說嘅創作入面。喺1917年發表咗呢個故事，就係呢個作者喺呢個階段創作嘅短篇故事之一。喺以下嘅保守黨抄襲嘅摘抄嘅段落裏邊呢，恐怖小說大師就喺度講咗自己對於戰爭以及世界和平嘅睇法。
哦，好，繼續。
Once I sought out a celebrated ethnologist
我訪問咗佢一個民族學者
and amused him with peculiar questions regarding the ancient Philistine legend of Dagon, the fish god.
而且向佢提出咗古代菲力斯丁傳說中嘅魚神嘅獨特問題。
呢個嘢係主神，喺中東地區被稱為掌管生育同作物嘅古代神靈，而被廣泛膜拜。OK， 統治者將佢奉為主管戰爭嘅神靈，同時亦都係審判亡靈嘅神靈，同埋領苦獄卒嘅形象。成日都俾人誤以為係魚神，但係其實都係因為佢嘅名所以出現嘅誤解。因為喺呢個希伯來語嚟講呢，係有魚嘅意思嘅。咁就喺呢個作者嘅作品入面呢，佢其實係一個掌管住海底嘅魚人種族深潛者嘅深海神子，亦都係邪教組織嘅。有一個邪教組織一直喺度秘密咁膜拜佢。
咦？我要撳咩啊？嘢呢？喺度。
But soon perceiving that he was hopelessly conventional, I did not press my inquiries.
佢係不可救藥嘅保守派，冇再同佢傾偈啦。
呢個人係一個美國作家同埋編輯，呢個人同時亦都係洛夫克拉夫特嘅好朋友，而且亦都通過自己嘅公司嚟發表咗好多作品。雖然後世對於洛夫克拉夫特嘅熱情喺極大程度上都係要歸功於奧古斯特喺佢死咗之後繼續接咗佢嘅衣缽，但係奧古斯特本人係極具爭議性嘅。其他外界對奧古斯特嘅最大質疑莫過於佢喺克蘇魯神話體系裏邊引入咗善惡對立嘅二元論。呢一點係同洛夫克拉夫特本人嘅世界觀同埋佢對於其嗰啲星神噩夢嘅描繪係完全唔同噶。而正於因為呢個原因洛夫克拉夫特嘅作品慢慢就俾人用現代嘅流行文化嚟錯誤理解同歪曲。除此之外，仲有一樣嘢唔可以唔提嘅呢，但係洛夫克拉夫特本人係從來冇發表過任何創造神話體系嘅想法，而且就連克蘇魯神話呢個稱呼亦都係德拉斯喺洛夫克拉夫特逝世嗰陣時創造出嚟嘅詞。
OK， sure。冇嘢篤嘅？做咩啊？做咩要 set 字形咁走啊
？It is at night, especially when the moon is gibbous and waning, that I see the thing.
我就睇到嗰個嘢啦。
I tried morphine.
我試過嗎啡。
But the drug has given only transient surcease, and has drawn me into its clutches as a hopeless slave.
甚至成為咗癮君子。
So now I am to end it all, having written a full account for the information or the contemptuous amusement of my fellow men.
唔好啦。
洛夫克拉夫特就好唔中意煙草噶。雖然喺12歲嗰陣時佢為咗扮大人試過吸煙，但係同友人萊恩哈特克萊納嘅 往來書信入面呢，洛夫克拉夫特啊就表示自己呢到咗着長褲嘅年齡啊，就戒煙啊。佢呢亦都好唔中意飲酒。佢喺寄俾查理亞布朗嘅信件中亦都寫明，對於飲酒呢，我從來都冇試過飲任何酒精類嘅嘢，亦都唔打算試過。對於一切會鈍化或者去削弱人類智力想像力嘅敏感平衡物質呢，我都會以審美嘅角度出發，極度厭惡。OK， 明白。
唔好啦，唔好啦。
Often, I ask myself if it could not all have been a pure phantasm.
我成日都會話，其實呢啲都只係一個幻覺嚟嘅
A
啫。
mere freak of fever as I lay sun-stricken and raving in the open boat after my escape from the German man of war.
我只係中暑而出嚟嘅場景。
This I ask myself, but ever does there come before me a hideously vivid vision in reply.
每次我提出呢個問題嗰陣時，嗰個幻象又出嚟。
I cannot think of the deep sea without shuddering at the nameless things that may at this very moment be crawling and floundering on its slimy bed, worshipping their ancient stone idols and carving their own detestable likenesses on submarine obelisks of water-soaked granite. I dream of a day when they may rise above the billows to drag down into their reeking talons the remnants of puny, war-exhausted mankind. Of a day when the land shall sink and the dark ocean shall ascend amidst universal pandemonium.
哦，大地會沉沒，深海會徹底崛起。哦，
The end is near.
終結將至。
I hear a noise at the door, as of some immense slippery body lumbering against it.
門口有啲嘢想衝入嚟。啊，有啲驚添，嚟啊！
It shall not find me.
我唔會俾佢揾到我㗎。啊，哇！
God, that hand!
嗰隻手。啊，好驚
The
啊
window! The window!
窗啲嘢啊！窗。哇！哦，好啦，呢隻遊戲玩完啦。哦，好，完啦。唔知大家覺得點呢？如果覺得仲好睇嘅話呢，就嚟留言、訂閱、俾個讚啦。好，今日嘅遊戲就到此為止，各位再見。